I'm Kris Holodak. I am an assistant professor of digital media in the College of Communication. And what that means really is that I teach film and video production courses mostly. And my background has pretty much always been with a camera in my hand. When I was 16 and I got my first job and started saving money, the first thing I bought was a camera. Um, and I always, I never quite knew what I was going to do with that. I certainly wasn't thinking film. It was photography then. But when it came time to go to college, I was like, something. What can I do? What can I do to keep a camera in my hand? And so I ended up doing broadcasting. At the time, film and LA and Hollywood was like not even in anybody's. I was a kid from upstate New York. Like, what? Hollywood? No. So I went to a state school and I learned about cameras and radio and photography, and I was a bit of a mayfly and did all the things because I liked all the things, and I was finding it really hard, like this idea that I was going to have to pick one and stick to it. And so, floundered in my 20s as one does. Went and got a master's degree in corporate communication, which was mostly focused on instructional design, because I wanted to make media, but I wanted to use media to teach people things. And so I did that. I finished that degree in the mid-90s, and then I spent 15 years making media that teaches people things. So for a little while, it was a corporate training company, and we had clients like GE and Xerox and AAA and Red Cross. And I was making all of the little audio and visual pieces that went into, because it was the 90s, so it was like the web was early, and you certainly weren't streaming video, but we were making laser discs and websites and all sorts of things, just ways to teach people things. And then I had a series of jobs. So I spent a couple years at National Geographic in their interactive division, making CD-ROMs mostly, and also making audiovisual pieces for the National Geographic website. I spent 6 years at the Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, which is where I really kind of found my niche. I started doing arts education and loved it. It was a combination of getting to write and direct and produce and shoot and edit and do sound. Like, I did all the things because it was mostly just me, and 3,000 performances a year in that building. So I met the most fascinating people. It was like great. But I reached a point where I realized I'm spending my career telling other people's stories, and I want a chance to tell my own stories. And so I wanted to start making films. I wanted to start writing and directing actual films. And that's really hard to do when you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week in a day job. So I quit my day job and I started freelancing in 2008. So never take business advice from me, but I survived it. I actually spent 5 years as a freelancer, and I kept the Kennedy Center as a client. I also had the Smithsonian as a client, the American Academy of Ophthalmology as a client, because when you freelance, you say yes to anybody who's going to pay you. But it gave me the flexibility to start making films. And I started making shorts because even though I knew how to make media, I was teaching myself how to write and direct fiction. And so I was doing it in sort of small chunks to give myself a chance to learn. And I did that for 5 years and thought, you know what? I'm good at this. I could do this for real. But this freelance stuff is kind of taking a lot of attention. And among all the freelance things I was doing, I was also teaching production and editing at the Institute for Documentary Filmmaking at George Washington University. And the other thing about freelancing is it takes a certain emotional fortitude, because you never know. You're always hustling for the next job. And I thought, I want somebody else to pay my healthcare, I want to know I'm going to have a paycheck. And B, I want the kind of job that's going to let me be a filmmaker. And so I looked around at all the things I was doing and what could do that. And teaching. Teaching was the answer. And so I went to my friends at GW and I said, here's what I'm thinking. And they said, that's fantastic. You have the wrong degree. Go back to school. Which was not the answer I was looking for. But I decided I was going to embrace it and go all in. And so I went and got a second master's degree. I got an MFA, which is the terminal degree for creative people, in film production. And I, like, this is it. I'm a filmmaker. And so now I'm a filmmaker. And I teach people filmmaking, and I make films. I write and I direct and produce a little bit, shoot a little bit. I mean, I still have the heart of a freelancer, and I still say yes when people say, hey, I need an editor. Like, yeah, all right. But mostly for my work, I am a writer and director. And that's how I see myself, and that's what I do. It's interesting to think about my research as telling a story, because my research is storytelling. So on the one hand, like, I tell stories for a living, but on the other hand, I now have a body of work. And so it is possible to sort of look thematically at the work that I've done and come up with, like, what stories do I tell? And there are definitely recurring themes in the stories that I tell and why they're important to me, both in my short films and in my feature-length films, because I'm starting to make that transition from shorts into features. I've written a couple of features. They haven't been produced yet, but they still sort of fill in the story of me, and the story of me as an artist and me as a filmmaker, and the things that recur, right? The themes that tend to always bubble up, even when I'm thinking about it, and even when I'm not thinking about it, are like, life is amazing. I tend to drift to science fiction kind of regularly, because it's a nice medium to look at the world from an outsider's perspective, and to get to this idea of, like, the world is pretty amazing. And there's ups and downs out there, and there's conflict out there, because it's a film. But if you keep your eyes open and you pay attention, like, there's people and stuff and nature and activities. There's things to see. And so one of the things about my work is that I'm always trying to, like, show people the joy and the wonder of the world. The other really recurring theme in my work is sort of around the idea of people and things that tend to be invisible. And it ties in with the first theme too, but a little bit specifically, like, the stories of the people who don't usually get their stories told, and broadly defined, right? Because I've done documentaries. I do natural history documentaries, and so those are films about endangered species. So that's not people who are invisible, but that's definitely things of the world that are invisible to most people. But I tend to have characters who are older. I tend to have characters who are queer. I tend to have stories about the people who get overlooked, and often about them needing to not accept being ignored. So I think the thematics of my filmmaking across genres, across styles, are like, the world is amazing, people are amazing. Here's some things I think you probably missed, and I'm going to show them to you. I'm drawn to these stories for a few reasons. I have, like, I'll tell you the story of my first feature script, Enid's Wall. And I'm not going to pitch you the story, but like, Enid's Wall is a story about a retired woman and whose wife has died, and she's moved from Washington, D.C. up to Cape Cod, which is rural Massachusetts on the coast. And her sort of quest to fit in there while she's grieving her loss. And it's like 6 of the main speaking roles are women over 60. And like, there's one guy, one of their husbands makes enough of an appearance to count, but generally speaking, it's about older women living their lives, doing the things that people do. And I've been pitching this around. And one of the things that's really important to me about it is that, like, if you believed Hollywood, women over 50 have no lives of their own. And in spite of the fact that in 2019, women made up 49% of the film-going audience, 10% of the films, I'm like, these numbers are roughly right. 10% of the films were directed by women. And 30 to 35-ish% of the films had women speaking more than men. None of them passed the Bechdel test. I mean, some of them do, but mostly not. Like, you would think, and if you're a young woman and you're watching all of these Hollywood films, you would despair of your future because apparently you don't have one. And I know that's not true. Most of the most interesting people I know are over 50 because you've had enough life to be interesting. I mean, young people are fabulous, but go have some life and come back and tell your stories, right? And so, and I spend a lot of time at independent theaters, and me and my sisters and their friends and my mom, and we all go to the movies together, and we come out and we think, I mean, even when we think that was good, almost never do we think that was about me. It wasn't even for me. I wasn't the target audience. And I want to fix that. So Enid is all older women. My newer film is not older women, but I actually sort of did a little calculation on my screenwriting software, and women speak 2.5 times as many lines as men speak in my latest script. Which, to me, as I was writing it, I didn't even notice, because women in my world speak. Women in my world have things to say. But if you look at what's coming out of mainstream media, when women are 50% of a crowd, people perceive it as being dominated by women. People will perceive the crowd being 50-50 if it's about 25 to 30% women. Because we don't see it, because we never see it. And so what motivates me is fixing that. The next chapter. I am so excited. Can I tell you? I'm so excited about my next chapter, and things are going really well right now. The feature filmmaking is an endurance sport. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of people. It takes a lot of energy. All through the years that I was making shorts, like I like making shorts. I like the format of shorts. And I would screen at festivals and I would stand in a Q&A line and people would say, "Why did you make this short?" And most people down the line would say, "It's my calling card for making a feature." And that was never the case for me. I was making shorts because I liked being a filmmaker and I liked the short form. And I still like the short form. But also I sort of knew how much passion and energy and time that features take. And I thought, I'm not gonna do that just for the sake of doing that. I need a story I'm gonna be able to like keep my energy up and keep my passion up for. So it took a little while before I got to Enid's Wall, which was the first feature script that I wrote. It is ambitious. It is expansive. It is going to be expensive. So the script has been well received, but we're still in development. It's going to take a little while. In the meantime, I wrote another script, Diffraction. Diffraction is my new one. And I was a little bit strategic about it because I wanted it to be something I could make. Small budget, small team, but feature. And so it's set on a college campus, and most of the characters are young. And then I started pitching the idea around about making it here as a joint collaboration between the digital medium major and the theater major. And I've been raising some money, and I've raised some money, kind of excited, so that I can hire professionals in a handful of key roles at the sort of top of the hierarchy, so that the producer, the director, the cinematographer, the production designer, the composer, and a handful of the adult character, like the actors for the adult characters, will all be paid. So it will be a professional, there will be professionals on set, but then most of the cast is young, so most of the cast will be students. And all of the support crew, all of the below the line crew, which is a sort of Hollywood phrase for above the line people, are, well, when you're watching a movie, in the opening credits, those are above the line people. They are the people I just named, the people who, if you change the person, you're going to kind of change the look and feel of the film. They have creative input. But then if you think about all of the end credits, those are all the below the line people who are vital, but aren't having a lot of creative impact. You need them all. You need all that work done. But any given person isn't having a lot of creative impact. So the idea is that all of our above the line people will be professionals and all of our below the line people will be students, so that all of our students will get an opportunity to work on a professional feature film this summer. I'm so excited. We're kicking it off with a table read of the script with some actors, and I have a group of students who are working in the production office right now, doing all the pre-production, and we're getting a bunch of theater actors, and we're going to do a table read, and we're going to just start figuring out the 6,000 details that it takes to get a feature film off the ground, and in June we're going to shoot it. I'm so excited.